Don and Cheryl.
In the summer of 1994, there was a lunch. Me, John Lasseter, Pete Docter, the late Joe Ranft, all sat down. Toy Story was almost complete. And we thought, well, geez, if we're gonna make another movie, we gotta get started now. So at that lunch, we knocked around a bunch of ideas that eventually became A Bug's Life, Monsters Incorporated, Finding Nemo. And the last one we talked about that day was the story of a robot named Wally.
Wally.
So a lunch a few years ago, a few napkins.
14 years ago. That's a few years ago, yeah.
And you come up with stories from Toy Story to Cars to Wall-E.
Well, I mean, we didn't think of all the movies then. To be honest, we only thought of one movie. We thought of A Bug's Life. And then we threw out a bunch of like half-baked thoughts. And one of them ultimately was the ocean. It became Finding Nemo. Some was the fears, and it ultimately got developed into monsters. But the other more substantial idea was a character. It was, what if somebody left Earth, all of humanity left Earth, and they left a robot on, and he just kept doing what he was doing and didn't know he could stop. And we said, that's so abstract that I don't think anybody would ever give us any money to do that. Because remember, we hadn't even finished Toy Story. We were just a bunch of young guys.
So you probably weren't sure you even had a job after a little.
Absolutely. So it just sort of sat on the shelf and grew a lot of cobwebs. And when I was finishing Nemo, I thought, you know what? I think we're better filmmakers now. The technology's kind of caught up, and I think there's enough trust in Pixar now that people might give a slightly different movie a chance.
Yeah.
Because we kind of feel a little obligated to keep pushing the boundaries of animation.
700 years into the future, mankind will leave our planet, leaving Earth's cleanup in the hands of one incredible machine. His name is Wall-E. After all these years, he's developed one little glitch.
Whoa.
A personality. He's extremely curious. And just a little bit lonely. But all that is about to change.
It was amazing, some of the special effects you did, but yet you also kind of tipped your hat to a lot of great old stories.
But a lot of it's unconventional dialogue. It's because it's so much about visual staging. It's so much about pantomime. So we watched all the Chaplin movies, all the Keaton movies, and what you walk away with is realizing that's a lost art form. Those guys could tell anything. They were not limited at all. For as much as you think it's a limit, it wasn't limiting at all.
No.
They were so clever.
Yeah.
And so that inspired us to go, then there's nothing to worry about. We can do it.
Eve.
I also kind of saw a Woody and Buzz story, kind of
Oh, really?
the old and the new, because
that's true.
Eve is sort of the new slick.
She's the highest end of technology. He's the lowest.
Exactly.
Wally.
There is a comedy and a love story, and ultimately a story about friendship, and I guess doing what your, what was the word that Eve asked that he gets?
Directive.
Your directive.
What's your point in life?
And the humans have forgotten theirs, haven't
That's
they?
exactly what the whole thing, to me, I had a premise that was irrational love defeats life's programming. You could say that literally about robots, but you could also say that we all have habits, we all have routines, distractions is what I would call it, to stop us from actually connecting with one another. And we sometimes do it to avoid having to deal with one another. And I felt like Wally was sort of like the little keeper of the flame to just sort of shake everybody and go, wait a minute, there's got to be more to life than what we're doing.
Yeah. And the power of one hand reaching out to another,
Yes.
both for the robots and then later.
Yes, yeah, it's a very simple, powerful thing.
You are now free to move around the cabin.
Just a trim? You look gorgeous.